Let me tell you about one of the most unproductive patterns I'm seeing today, and I see this happening very often. I'm gonna describe a situation and you let me know in the comments if this happened to you or someone that you know. Well, you look at your schedule and it's somewhat organized, somewhat manageable until you receive that request that sneaks in, that Zoom request, that Zoom meeting request, or that phone call request, and then you feel like everything starts falling apart. You still decide that you can sneak in one more meeting or one more Zoom, but at the end of the day, you realize that was a mistake because you are in the very edge of a breakdown or a burnout. The problem is, rationally, we know that we should say no to that additional request, right? But we tend to wait until we are in this very edge of breakdown, or sometimes until it's too late, then we do have the breakdown and the burnout, to realize that we should be saying no more often. The core of the issue that I want to talk about is that we have this unspoken rule that we have to feel significant distress, personal distress, before we say no to additional things. And what's happening is that people are training themselves to wait until they get into this almost unbearable mode, unsustainable mode, until they start protecting their time and their energy. Because at the end of the day, saying no to additional requests is about protecting your time, protecting your energy, and protecting the quality of your work. Because think about it, if you keep piling things up, the quality of your work is going to get compromised. You cannot produce the same quality of work by packing your schedule and expect that the quality is going to be sustainable. That's not going to happen. And I say this because if you think about it, productivity inside an office environment, for example, for what is called knowledge workers, right? People that are working on the computers, they're using their brain and their abilities to produce work, right? That sometimes that work is not even very tangible, but it's producing work. It's very different than productivity if you think about a factory setting, for example. There's a manual work that is being done in a factory that is measured. The productivity of that work is measured by the number of outputs or the number of pieces that is produced by hour, for example, right? So if you add another hour to that worker that is producing a piece of equipment, for example, this case right here, if you add another hour of work, what's going to happen is that the number of units is going to increase, right? But for knowledge workers or people that are working inside the office, if you add another hour of work, that doesn't mean that the output or the result of that work is going to be exponential, right? Or even worse, it's not going to be comparable to the quality of work expected. So when you wait too long to say no, this is essentially what's happening, is you're getting dehydrated, right? Imagine this scenario, you're getting dehydrated, but instead of taking sips of water to keep hydrated, you're waiting until you get dizzy, and then you go and then you sip water. So you're reacting versus being proactive, right? When you say no to additional requests because you want to keep the quality of your work, you're being proactive, okay? You're not, you have to get the idea out of your head that if you say no, people are gonna think that you're just turning down work because you're lazy or because, any reason. It doesn't really matter, One of the key components for knowledge workers is communication, okay? If you talk to your boss, to your superior and say, I really want to keep the quality of my work at a certain standard, and for that I need to dedicate more time to certain projects, okay? So think about that before you start just saying yes for everything. Another thing that happens when you wait too long to say no is that you're compromising your decision making abilities, because you're saying no not out of a place that you're analyzing and seeing the impact of your tasks, the impact that is going to produce the real results for your job, for your company. You're not looking at that angle. You're looking at an angle of desperation. You're saying no because you are in the very edge, in the very brink of a breakdown. So your decision making abilities is reduced. And your peak productivity and creativity happens before this breaking point. Okay, it doesn't happen at the breaking point, it happens before this breaking point. That's why you need to have self-awareness, self-regulation to know when you're getting, when you're on your way to that breaking point. And you have to make decisions way before you hit that breaking point. Well, yes, I know it's easier said than done, but that's why I say one of the most critical things to learn is self-awareness and self-regulation. So you can know, and you can measure this actually by the quality of your work, by how you are feeling, by your level of stress, your how you're sleeping, your mood. So you can measure these things by raising your self-awareness, right? And then the next step after self-awareness is self-regulation. You got to do something about it. So my point with this video is to raise the awareness that you have to say no from a position of strength, not a position of desperation. And that's what's been happening with a lot of people that I've been talking to that work in office settings, even working from home. They are not saying no for additional work because they're being strategic. They're saying no because they are getting very close to a burnout. In fact, I just talked to a friend over the phone literally 10 minutes ago, and she described me that she was one night in the middle of the night, 1:45 a.m. She woke up having sweats with her, her heart was pounding. So she was literally having a burnout moment, in the middle of the night because of the workload that she was taking and she was accepting. So she waited until she hit that point to reset and reorganize things. But we don't have to do that. We don't need to wait until we hit that moment until we change things. So I want you to ask yourself this question, and if you want, you can drop it in the comments. What would you do differently if you gave yourself the permission to say no to that additional meeting or that additional request? And think that you're saying no, not because you're overwhelmed, because that's, like I said, the reactive position. You're saying no because you're being very strategic about the impact that you want your existing tasks to have. I wanted to bring this reflection to you before you accept additional projects, additional workload, because sometimes, we work for ourselves and we have projects that are coming to us as opportunities, and we keep saying yes, yes, yes. Or we're working in an office environment that the demands are coming to your desk and you have to take care of it. So think about before you say yes to that additional project, say yes to that additional meeting. And I want you to think about these three things: self-awareness, self-regulation, and communication. Okay, self-awareness, see how you are feeling, see how the product of your work, what's the quality, like pay attention to all those things. Self-regulation, what are you going to do about it? Okay, if you are taking too much in your plate, and then you see that the quality of your work is declining or the quality of your health is declining, what are you going to do about it? And then the third is communication. Communicate that to people, to your coworkers, to your superiors. Say that you're making some changes on how you operate and you want to produce better quality work, or you want to finish things that you actually started and you want to finish those things at a high quality level. I'm pretty sure that people are going to understand, that people are going to be more compassionate actually than you think. And if this video resonated with you, tell me in the comments, what are the things that you plan to change right now? And as I always say, I appreciate your time here. I appreciate if you have already subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, click on the button down to subscribe, because every single week I release videos here on this channel that will help you with time management, productivity, neuroscience of habits, technology, and much, much more. I appreciate your time. I wish you an amazing and a blessed day. I'll see you on our next video. God bless you.